何を見ているいいね。
失礼します。やっぱ俺は運がいい。今日も生き延びた。I'm literally gonna wait for you. And I see you're gonna be like, nah, I'm not gonna like it. I'm just keep watching. Just subscribe. And you think the clip gonna cut right here, but it's not, because I'm still waiting for you to click that like button. And the subscribe and the post notification button.
So we're finally at that point where it's about time that I talk about an anime that made a huge difference. An anime that was so impactful that honestly every single time an episode came out, it would just send social media in a stir. An anime that is a bit controversial to a certain degree. But ultimately, it could easily be the anime of the year. And honestly, I'm pretty excited to talk about it because that anime is MF Ghost. Now, MF Ghost is a bit of a different anime because it's kind of about racing, and honestly, it's about the drivers putting their hearts on the line. And it just makes this anime, I'm just joking. Psych! But honestly, the anime that I'm here to talk about is Jujutsu Kaisen.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for.
Of which, honestly, had a pretty amazing season. Because, well, prior to the second season dropping, it was getting to the point where, honestly, people were saying that Jujutsu Kaisen was mid and that the anime wasn't as good as people said it was, and that it couldn't really carry Shonen in the way that people said it could. And honestly, I was actually starting to believe some of that, despite what I saw, until I started hearing the manga readers start mentioning a specific arc, in which they kept talking about Shibuya, and basically saying that just wait until Shibuya happens and then everything will change. And at that point I wasn't reading the manga, so I was like, well, guess I'll see it when I see it. So when season 2 was announced, a lot of the manga fans were saying that this is the arc that is going to change everything for Jujutsu Kaisen. And well, they were pretty right.
Well. It looks like I was right all along. People used to call me crazy, say I was fresh out of the loony bin for one of my takes, but now the shoe's on the other foot.
Because Shibuya arc is one of the most interesting arcs that I've seen in a long time. It's gonna be known as a pretty special season / arc because of how impactful it was. But before I dive into what made the season so special, well, I have to give you a quick background on what the anime is about. So basically what happens is we have this main character called Yuji. Depending on who you talk to, he may be the main character or he may not be, based on, well, you'll find out later. But basically what happens to him is that he stumbles upon a cursed item, which is a demonic finger, in which then Yuji proceeds to eat that demonic finger because of a certain situation that happens in season 1. And what do you kind of expect would happen if you ate a demonic finger? Well, he ends up being possessed by a demon. That's pretty much what happened. And ultimately, he has to live his life, as far as we know, with this demon and go on a journey to become a sorcerer. Now, not your usual type of sorcerer, but essentially in Jujutsu Kaisen, sorcerers are individuals who purge curses. Now, what happens is that when people go through certain situations like negative energy, and that maybe you're having a bad time or whatever, it eventually gets to a point where it manifests itself as a curse. So ultimately then what happens is that that curse can become pretty problematic depending on how bad of a situation you're in. And eventually you will need a sorcerer to come in and purge that type of curse so that you can be free from that curse. It's pretty much as simple as that, but of course the anime is way more expansive than that and a lot of things happen. But essentially we just follow a main protagonist who goes around eating fingers to gain a level of power. Now, you can take whatever you want from that, but it's kind of weird. But essentially, that is the story. Now, it does get a bit deeper because, well, the person who has possessed Yuji is a pretty interesting individual. in that he's called Sukuna, and ultimately he is one of the most powerful, depending on who you talk to, individuals ever in terms of Jujutsu Kaisen. But unfortunately he is pretty bad, which is one of the reasons why he's sealed. So now in the first season we got to see a bit of how powerful this individual was who is in control of Yuji from time to time. And well, season 2 decided to show us how much of a problem he is. Now this ultimately leads us to season 2, which is initially a bit of the inventory arc, and then it leads into Shibuya arc. The thing about season 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen is that every single thing that we experienced in the first season was just a bit of a walkthrough. And once you start season 2, it just gets to a point where honestly, if you don't watch one episode, you're pretty lost because everything happens so fast. After what happened in season 1, I don't want to spoil too much, all of the bad guys are back. But the bad guys come up with a plan to basically seal this person called Gojo. Now Gojo is extremely powerful and you'd probably want to seal him, so they eventually seal him. Now what do you think would happen when a person who is considered one of the most powerful sorcerers ever, and ultimately a person who could stop most people from doing bad things, gets sealed? Well, chaos ensues. So Shibuya arc basically follows that, and boy was it different. It might be the most darkest arc that you have ever seen, creating one of the best seasons that's been out for a very long time. The thing about Jujutsu Kaisen is that honestly it just broke all of the rules. It's an anime in which is a shonen but just doesn't care that it's a shonen. You know how in shonen generally the characters who are considered weak for some reason always find a way to survive. Someone might die but like not too many. Think about Dragon Ball Z. Think about Krillin, you know, he's died a lot of times but he'll come back, right? So eventually you just start to get numb to anything happening to him because you know he'll come back or that he'll be protected by someone more powerful. Well, Jujutsu Kaisen just said whoever you get into a problem with, that's on you.
Fight back! Fight back!
Because, well, in Jujutsu Kaisen, the power system is so raw that when someone powerful meets someone who's less powerful or just okay, you can tell the difference. And at some point, you actually start to develop a fear because you know what's gonna happen. Because ultimately in this arc, it's basically curses versus sorcerers. And now all of the curses have decided that it's about time that we purge you guys. And boy, oh boy, do they go crazy.
Fight back! Fight back!
Because once you realize how powerful Gojo is, you kind of also realize how powerful the curses are. Because once he's gone, a gap develops. And this gap is so huge.
What?
That when a powerful curse meets a person that we consider to be decent or just good in terms of strength, they wash them so badly that you will even question how strong they were to begin with. Now, one good example of this situation is Jogo. In season 1, he basically got toyed with by Gojo. Gojo just didn't take Jogo that seriously. In fact, he just said he's weak. We then started thinking that, oh, you know what? He is weak. I guess that's just how weak he is, you know? He's just a weak guy who's honestly gonna die and later on we'll just forget about him.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
In season 2, Jogo literally then decided to show us what he's made out of. He defeated 3 individuals who are considered pretty high level in seconds.
Torime.
Literally seconds, and he left all of them cooked. Well, depending on what type of way you'd want your meal cooked.
Medium rare, medium well.
He cooked them so fast that honestly he got bored and then went to go do something else because he was needed somewhere else. He was so powerful that he was thinking about another plan he had in mind. So these 3 individuals who we had considered powerful were nothing to him. Just as how we enjoy watching Gojo toy around with individuals who are perceived as powerful, the curses get their turn. And honestly, it's one of the most scariest feelings you ever can get in an anime, where individuals that you see as a source of good or protection for humanity, and also are ranked pretty highly, just get toyed with, then just how powerful is Gojo, but also just how powerful are these curses that we've been just laughing at this whole time? Because I don't know if you have a certain favorite within this anime, but chances are he got washed by a curse. Yuji cleaned up, Nobara cleaned up, Nanami cleaned up. I won't say Todo because he's my boy. My brother. So you start to get a gist of just how vague the power scaling of this anime is because of how powerful these characters are. And then also, of course, let me never forget Sukuna, because when he comes out and he's not even at full power, he honestly goes on a tear that is unbelievable. Because he's just toying around with curses and sorcerers. But then with all of this action within the second season and us realizing just how powerful characters are and aren't, season 2 might be the most emotional season ever. Because, well, for an anime that initially was just described as just action, which for some reason people didn't like, but then will complain about Shonen not having action, I don't know. But for an anime that was deemed to be, well, just fighting, there was a lot of fighting, yes, within the season, but it was super emotional in that when characters would ultimately meet their end, even though you hadn't seen them that much, or they weren't the most powerful, or they weren't the most deeply dived into character, those few moments spent before they ultimately died had a real impactful feeling. When what happened to Nanami happened, there was something sad about that. Nanami had experienced so many things, such as loss at a pretty young age, and also got to see the darker side of what happens when you have to deal with curses, because some of these characters are tossed into a world that they just have to be involved with, whether it's because they have the ability to or they're forced into it, and basically be this hero or sorcerer despite how they feel, because it's the right thing to do. So when Nanami ultimately decides that he doesn't want to be a sorcerer, he's making that decision for himself, even though he knows the good decision would be to carry on protecting people and be a sorcerer. But also as a person, after seeing so many of the people he cares for die and suffer, it made him just want to leave that life and ultimately just seek a life of peace. But now in a situation where once again he's forced into protecting the world or protecting Japan and doing something good, it results ultimately in his demise as he comes to the realization that he's not gonna make it. And while he's going through this contemplation, he's actually fighting for his life with curses all around him. And then ultimately when he gets to a point where he has to accept his own death, he then sees Yuji and then has to ask himself if he wants to tell Yuji to carry on the fight and basically spur on Yuji to be a good sorcerer, knowing that ultimately he's cursing Yuji and forcing him to do something that honestly might cost him his life. So even in his last moments, he had to contemplate whether doing the right thing was actually the right thing. And this was just one situation, because despite how downplayed Jujutsu Kaisen was in its first season, it was made clear that there's a lot of politics and intricacies that go within the world of sorcerers, and that it's not just a clear-cut good world that everybody who's a sorcerer is a good person and that they feel satisfied in purging curses and that they're seen as heroes. It's completely different, and honestly it's a pretty dark world. Season 2 really does an amazing job of making you feel that and making you understand that. And honestly, this anime's ability to showcase all of these things within seconds or minutes is incredible, because characters who were considered just ultimately fodder or just characters who will disregard because they're not really powerful left impactful moments. And honestly, it makes you wonder what type of anime this anime will be in the future, because in the first season people judged it on not necessarily having the best writing and the best story, and honestly it was just a slugfest from start to finish, to then still being a slugfest from start to finish, but also having some of the most well-written characters and stories. While doing that, you were able to develop a level of attachment to a character in one episode, due to the fact that you would see these characters who are supposed to be powerful or put their lives on the line for the greater good express vulnerability. And honestly, that is a super amazing amazing trait that this anime has, and basically doing the little things that we don't pay attention to, but making them seem so profound because it's that character's moment. It even happens for the curses, these things that we consider to be evil, and honestly we laugh at them when they get bullied or ultimately purged. But every character has their own story, even though we may consider them to be nothing. This anime was able to do something super amazing. For it to be able to clear everything that it was suggested to lack in within one season, but still stay true to what it is in that it's a shonen, was amazing. And to see this be animated in the way that it is, despite the controversy that has been surrounding how we get this amazing piece of anime, it's pretty impressive, and ultimately it should be one of the reasons why everything is made right in terms of that controversial situation. And ultimately I hope that they meet at a good point, because you have an anime that is excellently animated, honestly might be the best animated anime of the year. You would think at this point that would be enough, right? Like, it's got good writing, good animation, and also amazing fights, right? Then this anime also decided that despite having all of these awesome traits, how about we also have some of the best music as well? Because the opening and the ending of both parts of season 2 are super amazing. And honestly, I wasn't pretty sure about the second opening, the You Are My Special song, but over time it eventually won me over because of just the vibe that it had. It may not be the best compared to the first opening, but it's pretty good too. So ultimately, this anime was able to do a lot of things and also address a lot of things within the second season, because the second season of Jujutsu Kaisen just showed us what happens when you're just a bit patient with an anime, and now everybody is patient waiting for the third season to come out. And I'm pretty sure that people aren't gonna call the anime mid now, and if they do, then well, it is what it is. But this anime has made it pretty clear that it's here to stay, and ultimately it's gonna be everything it said it was going to be, in that it was gonna be a shonen that was gonna be the face of shonen. Now the question is, which other shonen are gonna step up to its level? Because Jujutsu Kaisen just set the bar pretty high,